That's why I was like, what?
It's mythology. No.
All right. And I think we're live. We are live. Hey,
Yeah.
we are here. We are here once again, everyone. It is the Spoiler Room podcast on this Sunday night. It is our last Fantastically Dark episode. And I decided to end on a film that I've been meaning to talk about for some time now. And I'm not talking about the 2010 version. Nay, we are talking about the original 1981 Harryhausen produced film Clash of the Titans. Stop motion animation, mythology, Harry Hamlin without a shirt. I mean, it's got everything. And I've got everything here tonight with my crew that I have. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. And yes, my crewmates tonight to talk to me about this wonderful film is none other. First off, she's back with us, the blonde in front. It is none other than Katie Glidewell. Hello, Katie.
Hi.
So glad you could join us. And my right-hand man, he's back again because he just keeps coming back. And we are so fortunate to have him once again, the one and only Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
So glad to have you tonight to talk about this wonderful film. And Katie, since it's been a while, why don't you give the synopsis of Clash of the Titans?
Well, Clash of the Titans has many clashes, but ironically, no Titans, which we can discuss. It starts off with Princess Denai and her little itty bitty newborn baby.
Perseus.
Perseus. Why can I just completely blanked on his name? Being put in a floatable coffin by her dad because she was locked in a tower because he got jealous of her beauty, and then lo and behold, somehow got knocked up. So, because of her sin, he's casting her out into the ocean. There's a very fake looking seagull that's looking at this going on, and it goes to Mount Olympus where we have, the title of the film, the credits of the people, and this beautiful opening score. Lo and behold, this seagull bird is Poseidon, and he tells Zeus, what has happened. Zeus gets pissed. He's like, F you, king, and F you, Argus. I'm going to destroy you all because you threw your daughter into the ocean. Hera's kind of like, whoa, this guy's been pretty good to us, and it's one chick, so what's the big deal? It's like, no, it's his daughter. This is what I say, and this is it. So Argus is gone, kind of crazy. Um, the princess walks around a lot naked with her naked son on this little island. He grows up. There's a lot of B-roll of the gods talking about what we don't know because they don't really hear the dialogue, which didn't make much sense. And then 20 odd years later, Perseus is handsome and, all good. And apparently all those gods are still supposed to remember him. And the goddess of the ocean, played by Maggie Smith, who technically didn't really exist, but that's all good because this is Hollywood and it's made up. Her name is
Theseus.
Thetis.
Yeah.
Thetis, which doesn't sound good, but she has a son named Calibus who is a real dirtbag in Joppa. And while she's kind of jealous of Perseus, who's basically grown up poor and had nothing, her son has had everything and is just a D-bag to the 11th level. Zeus says, no, I'm going to punish him. She asks for mercy, which he doesn't deserve, and rightfully so. This is the one thing that I agree with that Zeus does in this film. Zeus punishes Calibus, and then that kind of gets the movie into motion because then Thetis takes Perseus, sticks him in this heir just takes a little doll that he is, sticks him in
Alpha.
this, yeah, and well, it's not really, it's a little ways away.
The amphitheater in
Yeah,
Joppa,
he sticks
yes.
him in an amphitheater. He wakes up half naked, doesn't know where he is, and then the only actor that actually gives a believable and true performance, Burgess Meredith, shows up. And I mean, he's given like I think at that point he'd already won the Oscar, but he is really given it like Oscar worthy performances with his believability of how like all these things start happening to Perseus. It's like he gets a sword, he gets a shield, he gets a helmet, all made from the lady goddesses and all that stuff, because Zeus can't technically pinpoint that Thetis put Perseus there, but whatever. And Perseus hears about this princess Andromeda. He gets smitten with her. Andromeda is cursed because she was supposed to be with Calibus. And so if she was not going to be with Calibus, no man can. So there's this whole thing about she has to have a riddle, and anyone who is a suitor that tries to win her over has to solve this riddle. And if they don't, then they get burned alive at the
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
which they call bonfires, which I'm like, wow, that is not what I did for a bonfire in Missouri, but whatever you guys do in Volpa, whatever. Perseus is like, let's see what's going on. He checks out Andromeda. She's hot. I'm going to figure out how to win her heart. And yeah, he figures that out. Then he's got it. Then there's all this different like Harryhausen, like clay figure creatures, which some are great. Actually, the clay figure creatures, I think are great. Some of the CGI, even for 1981, is really shoddy. And he ends up cutting off Calibus's hand. He solves a riddle. Andromeda and Perseus are going to get married, and then her mom like says something dumb that, you know, Andromeda is more beautiful than the goddess Theta, and then they're in this temple. Her head falls off, and Maggie Smith's eyes wake up with the goddess Theta on the ground. Say, you know what? You pissed me off. Andromeda's going to get eaten by the Kraken, or the Kraken's going to completely wipe out Volpa. So then they have to go on this 30-day journey, or they have 30 days until this happens. So in that time, Perseus tries to figure it out. They figure out it's got to be with Medusa to cut off her head. They do that. For this taking, it really, after watching it this long too, it does not seem like this is taking 30 days. So they're really taking their time. I know they don't have Pegasus to like take them and stuff like that, but even with that, it's like I feel like sleeping should have maybe been on the minimum, and it seems like a lot of times that they're doing that, and I'm like, what do you TikTok, dudes, TikTok. This chick is gonna die. Tick effing tock. What are you doing? And then Perseus finds Medusa. Stuff happens. There's more Harryhausen stuff. Calibus has the longest, most ridiculous whip in the world that apparently is like 90 feet long and can do all these amazing things, which also he once Perseus cut off Calibus's hand, you got this really janky
fork.
Gold
fork hand
that apparently can jab a thing that with Medusa's blood, but doesn't do anything to his janky hand, but Medusa's blood can melt a goddess given shield. So there's some head scratching to that.
Well, in addition, when, spoiler alert, Medusa gets her head chopped off, Perseus has to put it in a bag in order to take it to defeat the Kraken. What is that bag made out of? What is it enchanted?
You missed that part.
I didn't miss that part because it's like when he cuts off Medusa's head, the blood's spewing out very thick, And then he doesn't even have the bag. He's just like holding on to it.
It's not a bag.
Drags it out.
But it's not a bag.
What is it?
When he was with the three, I've watched this film a number of times. When he's with the three witches, they specifically said that her blood is toxic, but since he had the eye, it turned his red cloak to protect it from the Medusa blood. And so the red thing you see is not a bag, it's the red cloak that he was wearing when he went to the temple and he cut her head off. It's the red cloak he has her head wrapped in.
See, very good. Again, that's another one throwaway line that's in the film that's supposed to explain a whole lot.
Well, especially because the anticipation is that if it's going to be a protective cloak now, thanks to the eye that he can use against Medusa, you got to use it against Medusa, not just have it end up being a freaking bag at the end of the scene, because no one's going to remember that unless, again, you rewatch this movie.
Yeah,
there's no connection.
And it's the whole thing that Calibus had killed all of the winged horses except for Pegasus. Perseus subdued or made Pegasus his own. And then Pegasus is just on his own and Calibus takes it again. I don't understand why Calibus didn't kill it at that point. Like, that seems kind of like a head scratcher to me. But then when Perseus finally kills Calibus, which is very much needed. I forgot to mention Bobo, the mechanical owl that apparently also needs to sleep for some reason, and that's another thing. Bilbo frees Pegasus. And then Perseus has the bag of Medusa's head, makes it back to the amphitheater somehow in a matter of time. I mean, again, they don't really discuss that.
Because it's Pegasus, he flies.
Well, but Perseus has walked from where they were to the amphitheater. And then Thetis is like, well, you know what? That's tough stuff, because now we got to kill Andromeda. And while Perseus is passed out, Zeus goes into the little godlike amphitheater, makes him erect, and he's like, okay, sure, I'm not saying anything. And then somehow, which we don't see this, but Pegasus and Perseus get back together. Andromeda is chained up, and she's going to be, fed to the Kraken. The Kraken comes. Poseidon, whenever he releases a Kraken or does something with the Kraken, is one of the funniest things in my movie going history, especially watching it again, because a lot of times when you see him underwater with the Kraken, it's like when I have my Apple iPad and just goes like, and you don't know why he's doing that, or it'll go. Some of those scenes just weren't necessary, and the CGI in that was also like, what? Considering this is a giant Kraken and the way it's held in captivity is through a big metal gate with a rock that he twists, like Poseidon, like lifts open. I don't know. It just seems very silly to me, considering that this is supposed to be like this giant Gorgon that can destroy cities and worlds in, an instant and whatnot. But not this time, because Perseus comes. He's got Medusa's head. Bobo. I keep saying it. The mechanical owl makes him, spins him around and all that stuff. Pegasus gets in the water. Perseus shows Kraken Medusa's head. Kraken turns to stone. Cassiopeia, Andromeda's mom, doesn't seem to give much emotion when all of this is going on, either good or bad, especially when the Kraken ends up dying and her daughter is free. I don't know if she's supposed to be shocked or what, but that to me was kind of like, she's like, oh, okay, this is happening, which obviously none of these people are seeing this because this is all, CGI. And then Perseus and Andromeda get married. They have a bunch of fine sons. They're told not to do anything to Perseus. And then we're told that there's stars, constellations that signify these events, and then apparently Cassiopeia is very vain, which has never been mentioned at all in the movie, not once, other than at the end, which again is a head scratcher, and that is Clash of the Titans, 1981.
Well,
there you go.
The only thing that I would correct is they don't use any CGI in this. It is compositing and stop motion. So there isn't any CGI. So it's miniatures, it's CGI is not there yet. So they used all compositing, old school film approaches like they used to use on the like Jason and the Argonauts and that, and animation, but there was no actual CGI going on yet.
So the film compositing, I'm guessing, is what I would call CGI, and that those are the parts that I thought were somewhat, even for 1981, were not great. But I may be seeing something, because I remember watching that as a kid and not thinking it was as obvious as it is watching it now. So I don't know if they did some touch-ups on things, because I know with the version that I watched, there's certain things, like definitely things in landscape shots where there's stuff with sphinxes that you can obviously tell are fake, that are composited on. But then you see Perseus walking and it's like, okay, well, you have the practical, you actually made this thing. So why didn't you just film him coming in with this actual thing? And then some of the things with the flying with the birds and the aerial shots and stuff like that, that reminded me a lot of The Shining. But then, you have the seagulls like coming in. I was a little confused because I thought it's like, why, if this is supposed to be, but then I thought it was supposed to be Zeus who was looking after Danae and her son. But then I realized it was Poseidon. So that does make sense why it's a seagull, although some of the seagull shots look pretty whack. But again, I thought Burgess Meredith was the best thing in this film, and that Ursula Andress was incredibly underused. Like, I think she has one line in the entire movie.
Yeah, and she gets pretty close to top billing too, but
yeah.
So Katie didn't like it. What about you, Ian?
Well, Katie, let me ask, did you like it? Did you not like it? What, and how many times had you seen it? It sounds like you watched it when you were younger and then maybe revisited it, but like with Mark, you've watched this a number of times. Katie, what's your history with the movie?
Oh, I remember watching this movie when I was a child, like in single digits. I can't recall if I actually saw it in the theater, which I may have, but I don't remember necessarily. But I mean, this was something that was on cable a lot. I mean,
it was.
Barry Hamlin is a dreamboat. And the fact that you've got like all of these, like, Oscar winners in this was something that I was always impressed with, like growing up, because I knew who Sir Laurence Olivier was. I knew who Burgess Meredith was. I came to know who Maggie Smith was. And then my dad being a big James Bond fan, I knew who Ursula Andress was. I didn't necessarily know the other people, but I was a big fan of Jason the Argonaut. So, the Harryhausen effects are always something that I loved with that. And I mean, you can, like, even in this, like with the Vulture and different things with Pegasus and different things with Medusa and the Kraken and stuff like that. I mean, those are all things like at that time were very impressive. And even now I can see the skill. And I mean, even now I find, for that time and everything, I find them impressive. But seeing the composite, like what I think, was calling CGI, some of those things I don't recall. And I wonder again if they did like a touch up, and then this is the one that I rewatched on Prime, because there's definitely different things when you're in Argus where they have like the composite people that are in the actual look like they're in the city, and then they bring the water in and stuff like that. And there's some of the things that for it being Mount Olympus, look, I'm glad that you have a bunch of goddesses. It is kind of weird that you don't have like certain, other gods and stuff like that. But seeing it now, I definitely see a lot of things that I did not pick up on when I was a kid. And I don't remember the woman and the child walking naked on the beach. It's not like it's a big thing, but it was just a little like, okay, I honestly don't know why this was needed either way, other than it's like they have a peaceful life and, what's up? We're nude and this is how we live our life. Good for you. Good for us. But no, I did like the movie. I always have a thing with Medusa and everything because there's different theories of what happened with Medusa. The fact that they say it's like, oh, she made love and Aphrodite, with Poseidon and Aphrodite's temple, and then she was punished. And there's another story where she was actually, SA and she was still punished. And it's always a thing that it's like you punished her, but you did nothing to Poseidon who did this in your temple. And, considering it is such a horrific thing that they did to her, it's like, okay, like the stuff that happened to Calibus, he almost made, a species of animal extinct because he was a dick.
Yeah.
And he had like no one did anything to him because he was Thetis' son. And that was one of those things like, oh, have mercy on him. It's like he's and even when he gets, his hand come up, like, I want revenge. I want this to be, done to me. It's like you're taking no accountability. And it's one of those things that, watching it now, it's like, oh man, yeah, no, that's not a good mom.
I was saying, joking too, Katie, that you didn't like it. I wasn't making it full assumption.
Well, no, I was trying to figure out, because I think in all of that I couldn't quite tell. You were kind of critical there, but it also didn't sound like you were necessarily down on the movie. And now when you've explained it, it sounds like you did enjoy it. It is weird because this was a staple of cable TV back in the day, and I remember seeing that Medusa scene several times, but I feel like every time Clash of the Titans was on TV, in my personal experience, it was always that scene whenever I caught it, because watching it today was the first time I've ever watched the entire film. I think I watched the first of those crappy 2010 movies, and they made a sequel to that. I don't remember if I even saw the sequel, the Sam Worthington thing. But yes, this is my first time watching it, and it was rough. I liked the first little bit of it. I did have to. The part of the problem, as much as I respect Ray Harryhausen, I respect what they were trying to do with this movie. Katie, you were kind of touching on it. Especially in the 45 years since this thing came out, we've had such great leaps and bounds in what can be done with special effects that it is distracting. Yeah. And I found myself thinking, this does either a combination of this doesn't look real. Why does the scene keep changing within this, or the scenery keep changing within the same scene? And wow, that's a really cool sculpt on Pegasus. Not, I can't believe there's a guy who's lassoing a Pegasus.
Yeah.
On top of that, this movie is almost 2 hours long. It could have been an hour 20. There is so much fluff and padding. I was having to fight the Twitter scroll during most of this movie, but especially when a great example is when Perseus is trying to get to the island that holds Medusa.
Yeah.
And the ferry shows up on the river Styx. Like you see them standing at the shoreline looking at the island. And then you see the boat materialize halfway through, and you see a reaction shot of Perseus, and then you cut to the boat and Perseus and the boat, and they finally get on the boat, and the soldiers get on the boat, and they take off. And yeah, exactly. Like Skeleton opens his hand, you get a react. It's like 3 minutes of screen time of nothing happening. And I think we're supposed to be wrapped up in the, oh my gosh, the terror of it all. There's not anything dramatic or tense in this movie, I think, unless you're experiencing it as an 8-year-old boy, which when I saw the Medusa stuff when I was a kid, that was genuinely terrifying. Today, it's kind of goofy, but I did appreciate the animation on her head. Plus, I did have some questions. Kind of touching on something else you said, Katie, earlier about why did they use special effects in some scenes where they weren't necessarily warranted. When we go to Calibus's realm,
Yes.
we see the actor in this really great elaborate makeup. I mean, he's been turned into this hideous creature, but they do a wide shot and they have him sitting on his throne, but they have a claymation version of the actor kind of gesticulating to a real actor next to him. I'm thinking, why?
Yeah.
Other scenes you can kind of understand that because he's got that giant whipping tail. You need to animate that, but he's just sitting on his throne,
feet and stuff like that. But yeah,
right?
That's the thing. It's like with the butt. I was wondering the same thing because like with the butt, if there were budgetary restraints, it's like you put all this money into his face and into like his hands, but then the rest of his body you never see. You don't really have a whole thing with the rest of his body.
Mark, jump in here. You look like you're.
Oh no, you guys take over. That's fine. You go right ahead. I'm good. No,
I mean, I understand why people love this movie. I just don't. I aside from the technical showcase, I just don't think it's that good of a movie, and I think it falls into the same kind of problem that we've had some of the other movies we've talked about on the Fantastically Dark month. Is it takes itself way too seriously. There's no Han Solo in this journey. We get every archetype down to a damn robot that beeps and boops, and one character can understand what he's saying, but no one else can. But we needed that kind of roguish person to like lighten things up with some jokes. The gods are too serious. As much as I like Harry Hamlin as the actor he would become as Perseus, he's a complete block of wood. And then everything else is like a special effects showcase, which some of the special effects are very cool. I love the bit where Medusa's head gets stabbed through the cloak bag, and then the blood spills out and turns into maggots and scorpions, which grow to extreme size. It's cool, but as a movie, I'm like, why would I ever watch this again? That's where I stand.
Okay. Well, that was a great episode, folks. Thank you. Have a good night, all. I joke. No, everybody sees something different, and your guys' criticism are. I get where it's coming from. For me, I've adored this film. I've adored this film since it came out. I have it on the DVD. I have the soundtrack in the back on vinyl. In fact, the soundtrack in back is the first vinyl that I had spent more than $1 on. I found it at a thrift store. I had never seen it anywhere else, and I had seen it at a thrift store for $10, and I bought it for $10 on vinyl. It's in great condition. I still love.
Yeah.
I still love it.
Is that the original plastic?
No, well, no. This is the plastic that I got. Plastic sleeve. I put it in.
Okay.
But
really good.
The score. I love the score to this.
Yeah.
And we've got Ted, the soundtrack guy, here. He's showing up, and he asked me, "Excuse me, what are my thoughts on Lawrence Rosenthal's score?" It's fantastic. It's what you want for an adventure film like this. I mean, it's full of romance and just action and adventure, and probably even maybe a little too good for a film like this. But nonetheless, it really adds to the emotion. And I totally get what you guys are saying. I think part of it is it ran into some production issues, but also it is a product of its time. In that we've seen so much since then, so it's a lot of things that may have been forgiven back when we were younger aren't so much now, because we look back on why didn't they just do this? Now, as far as Calibus goes, the reason I think you see some of the shots and why it doesn't match up is because initially Ray had planned on him to be a completely stop motion animation character with absolutely no dialogue. The producers in that brought in an actor to play live action parts and put him in makeup to interact with Andromeda, but that was not, even though he's a producer, the studio did not like the idea of Calibus being just a stop motion animation character without any dialogue, because they were going to have him be like just this beast, this creature altogether. So that's why I think some of those scenes you're like, why didn't they just use the live action? Because I think the scenes where we see the actor initially like were inserted in, because they worked on some of the stop motion before they're filming the live action stuff, and trying to match it up with the live action. In fact, Katie, your criticism is warranted, and Ray Harryhausen would agree with you on some of the mixture of the stop motion with the live action, because they used a different film stock quality for the live action versus what they shot the stop motion on. So the stop motion stuff actually looks pretty clean and clear and nice.
Yeah.
The live action stuff is grainy, and they couldn't match it up because it was completely different film stock that they shot the two on. And so Ray did not like, especially the scorpion scene. He was not happy with how the scorpion scene came out because of that exact thing. The live action stuff was grainy, and the stop motion stuff was pretty crisp.
No, yeah. I mean, I actually, like I said, the stop motion stuff, even to this day, like the whole thing with the vulture and stuff like that, like seeing that and then seeing like the different hands, the Krakens, like get on the rock and do that and stuff like that. I'm like, that's still impressive. And I mean, I will always have a fondness for this, out of pure nostalgia. Like I remember watching this, I think with my grandma, I remember watching this, with my parents. So there's always going to be that little bit there for me that I'll have a love for this film. But yeah, just rewatching it as an adult in 45 years later and seeing those overlay things, I was like, that just does not look good. Ooh, it's like, why could you not just afford to have the actors like on those sets that obviously look like that's an actual set? Like, why did you have to have them? And this is before, like, I'm talking about the Argus scene where you see people that are like walking around this, like the city of Argus. I'm like, those are obviously like superimposed into there, and the city hasn't even been destroyed yet. So why did they have to do that? I feel like you actually spent more money and you could have just like, you have the set. Did you just like not have anyone on? I don't know.
They were miniatures. A lot of the sets were miniatures, and they superimposed the live action stuff they shot on set into those matte paintings and such. It looks better on DVD than it does on your digital streaming crisper clear, because quality, even though it looks good on DVD and you do notice some of those shortcomings, I think it's part of the whole, not all films need to be cleaned up and given an HD treatment, because the part of the magic of some of those special effects back in the day was the fact that they were relying on the grain of film and such being shown in the projector to help maybe cover up some of its shortcomings.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it before that when the Price is Right went to when they went to HD TV, everybody looked at the Price is Right and go, holy crap, those sets look like ass. And because they've used the same set for 30 years. And that's because when TV before it was HD, they didn't need to necessarily worry about cracks and brush strokes and things being shown, because it kind of got a little bit blurred out. So
for the same reason, there was a crisis in the adult entertainment industry with the advent of HD. Cracks and brush strokes.
Nice.
Yeah,
mainly the cracks.
Nice one, Ian. Nice one.
I'm speaking the truth, Mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Well, I'm sorry you found it not so exciting, Ian. But
here's a good example. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily go back to the special effects. It's about direction, editing, pacing. The scene where, and Katie kind of touched on this, where Perseus is riding Pegasus to save Andromeda from the Kraken. He's up in the air, and we see him in the distance, and then we get the close-up of Harry Hamlin, quote unquote, on Pegasus, and we can see where Andromeda is chained up in relation to the Kraken.
Right.
And they keep cutting back to him like, when is he going to get there? He's on this magical flying horse, and he's flying at literally like 2 miles an hour. What is going on here? It's really bad.
Well, yeah, considering that he walked from the amphitheater to Jopa, whatever it's called, in not that long of a time. You're on Pegasus. You should have gotten there a lot quicker. But also, we don't see when Perseus and Pegasus are reunited. It's just all of a sudden, and they're back, baby, because that little, metal owl saved him from the swamp. Can we talk about the marsh people, by the way?
Sure.
What was that? That was some interesting stuff. Watching it again, there was one guy in the background who was just blatantly just having a full-on conversation with himself when Andromeda was walking toward the throne. And I made a note of it. I was like, dude, who the hell are you talking to? There's no one around you. What is going on with these people? Like, I understand why Calibus was cursed. Did he know these people before he got cursed? Like, were these like, I'm going to curse Calibus and then also his frat buddies because they obviously went along with all this bad behavior that he did. And it's like, sorry, not sorry. I also really, really like, because Calibus isn't even really a character in Greek mythology. Apparently, he's someone that William Shakespeare came up with that's supposed to be a character or whatever, and the same thing with Thetis and whatnot. But I would have really liked it to be the whole thing that Calibus was just so unbelievably handsome, kind of like Beauty and the Beast, where the prince is so handsome. Like, he was so handsome that he could get away with anything, and he did. And then when it flipped, then people, like, it broke the spell, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, you're a D-bag. Like, why did we think you were great that whole time? And the whole thing, like, one of those, it's like when Perseus confronts a, very volatile word, but when Perseus talks to Andromeda after their engagement, he was like, did you love Calibus? She's like, love? Well, no. He was just exciting. I was very young. I'm like, girl, didn't this happen like 6 months ago? Like, how long? What do you mean you were very young? Like, you were 18, now you're 18 and a half? Like, what are you talking about?
There's a world of difference in 6 months when you're a teenager.
That's true,
Yeah.
Especially in Greek times. Like, you could be a grandmother at that time.
The passage of time definitely is not conveyed properly, but I think it was a little bit longer than that. The thing is, when you're dealing with the gods and that, their time is different than the others. We're not given necessarily a scale of how fast or how slow time takes place on Earth versus where they are on Mount Olympus.
That's for sure, because when Poseidon is ordered by Zeus to take care of Perseus and his mom as they're sealed up in that water coffin, he's like, oh yeah, and make sure that they get to shore and that they're okay. I'm like, yeah, but he just still allowed that water coffin to like float on the sea until it reached this beach. I'm like, how about just maybe an air hole or something? Because this is one of the most traumatic openings to a movie I can recall, because it's just these Roman soldier looking people going out to this shore, condemning a mother and her crying infant son into this coffin that they seal up and bolt and then just send out to the sea, all like pseudo Moses style. I'm like, what is this movie? I thought I love the sort of the palace intrigue of the gods, because that was something that we haven't really talked about, is that Zeus was being Perseus's mother. That was the whole idea of the father being, locking up the daughter and everything, and Perseus was the bastard child, but the person who impregnated her, who snuck into the tower, we're led to believe, I think it's actually explicit in the dialogue, was Zeus.
Yeah, no,
So
Zeus did what Zeus did in mythology a lot of times. This time he took the form of golden dust and he impregnated her.
Golden ray of light coming
That's
down.
right.
It's like,
and then at one point, I think it was it Thetis said that she had turned Zeus had turned into a cuttlefish to try and seduce her, and so she turned into a shark. I mean, these people are all bastards and screwing each other over, and that's the interesting thing about the gods hierarchy. If they can just mess with each other like this, but it seems like there's certain limitations on what they can or can't do, and I didn't understand that's part of the rules that I didn't quite get here. Like Zeus is the main guy, but people can still kind of mess with him and plot behind his back. But then how is it that he is not all seeing enough to understand that people are plotting?
Well, in some stories that I've seen in the past about Zeus and that, it's whether or not he cares. He may know that they're doing it, but it all a matter of how much he cares. In this case, the reason Perseus is given all the shit that he's given is because he's the kid of Zeus, and Zeus is like, that's my kid. And Theseus is like, well, what about my kid? And he's like, I don't give a shit. He's like, this guy's a dick. I'm going to do this. And she's like, what, no mercy? Like, yeah, but no, give my kid a golden sword and a visible helmet and a shield, because that's Zeus. That's one of the things I do enjoy in here, actually, is how dickish the gods are to each other, because I have done some reading, not a whole lot, not as much as you fine folk. I'm not as versed in mythology, but the parts that I have read in that, they weren't exactly in some stories nice to each other either. They were all, I mean, the reason you have the robotic robot, in the real world, you have the robotic robot because the studio said, hey, let's capitalize on R2D2. In mythology, we have, or in the story, in the movie, we have it because the one goddess doesn't want to give up her actual owl, which is an actual owl in mythology. Name's not Bubo, but there is an actual owl that plays a major part in mythology. Tyan or something. Horrible at pronunciations. I am sorry,
yeah,
but
the goddess Athena, which they call Athene in this, which I like Athene, but as far as I've known, it's always been
yeah, it's Athena. Well, they do say Athena at some parts too, but Athene, the pronunciation is definitely a little soft. But yeah, so I mean, that's why we have our robotic owl. But I just liked how she did that versus giving up her owl, even though Zeus said, hey, give up your owl. And he got a kick out of that. He's like, yeah, give up your owl. So I liked the portrayal and the discussion of the gods and some of their conversations in that quite a bit, mainly because when I was younger too, I hadn't really seen the gods portrayed like that. Usually you see the gods portrayed as big, bombastic, and usually they're doing good, or by them. And in this case, it's like, nah, they're all pretty much dicks to each other as well as humans. They just manipulate humans constantly.
Well, I mean, the whole factor of the gods is that they destroyed their parents, which are the Titans, and Kronos and all that. And it's all about family dynamics, because I mean, Zeus and Hera are brother and sister, and they're also husband and wife, or it's like that's husband and wife and father and daughter. I forget. It's one of those things where it's like they're keeping it in the family.
Yeah.
And then you've got, Poseidon and everything. And they don't even talking about God, I can't even think of the god of the underworld.
Hades?
Yeah. They don't talk about him, and they don't even show him in this, which I think is kind of crap.
Sequel.
Well, I know. Because I mean, he would have been part of that, as well as like Ares and like, different gods and all that stuff. But yeah, they mess with each other so much, and then they also messed with each other's humans so much. And going back to the whole thing with Andromeda, I was so young. I mean, Zeus turns Calibus into that monster, and then in the next thing, instance, Thetis takes Perseus and puts them in the amphitheater. Yeah. So technically, in human time, that's all supposed to be happening in the same 24 hours and all that stuff. And then he walks to Volpa, and all that stuff, which I gotta love that the head of the soldiers is also the most gossipy of
I love that guy.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, hey, friend, you're new. It's like, how would you know if I'm? Do you know everyone in this damn city? Like, really? Do you not
Possibly.
have? I mean, and it's like, well, let me get you up to speed on the goss. So then he's like, so that's Cassiopeia, Andromeda. It's like, wait, someone's going to try and do a riddle. And if they don't get it, they're going to be in this bonfire thing. And he looks at them so sternly. It's like, Andromeda is quite beautiful. I'm like, dude, I get that, but seriously, how hot is this chick that, I'm going to have to do a riddle and you have to answer it at that exact time. And if you don't, all right.
In front of everybody. Don't forget, in front of everybody.
In front of everyone. A lot of pressure.
I mean, we've got this all-star cast in here, and I liked everybody in there. I mean, Laurence Olivier, I think he got in here because of a relationship he had with, was it
Maggie Smith's husband.
Maggie Smith was married to the screenwriter Beverly Cross.
And she convinced him to do the film.
And Beverly convinced Laurence Olivier to do the film.
Wait, Maggie Smith was married to the screenwriter?
Yeah.
Yes. Who had written Jason and the Argonauts. So that, there you go, from 1963. And so, so that's how Laurence Olivier got in here. You've got Maggie Smith in here, who's definitely talented.
Here's my confusion, because the screenwriter is Beverly Cross, but there's an E. I didn't know that Beverly could be a guy's name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that before. It caught me at back first, and I'm like, oh no, I've heard of other men being named Beverly. So we not Belvedere, but in any case, so I mean, you've got the talent here. I mean, Harry Hamlin was picked, because, well, I mean, he just looks, with his shirt off, he's just beefcake here. He hardly ever wears a shirt. They brought Burgess Meredith in as well because they wanted to appeal to the American audiences. I love Burgess Meredith in here as the thespian guy who used to run the amphitheater and all the cats he had and everything. I just loved his character. What'd you think of Burgess's character in this? I know you weren't that invested in the film, but
I mean, and I'm not invested in his character. He was the only reason the character semi worked is because he was played by Burgess Meredith.
Right.
Like, he's got that cute shit they do in all these movies, like, oh, one day someone should make a play about this. Oh, don't worry, I'll include the owl. It's so meta. He's a nothing character. He's the wise old guy who kind of has the answers to everything, and he's going to guide the young apprentice. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi, except he survives. If it weren't Burgess Meredith, we wouldn't be But if it weren't Burgess Meredith, we wouldn't be talking about him. That's my whole point. The only thing I liked about this was that one scene where, after Perseus, I think, collects all of his, special things to go on his side quest, Burgess Meredith is like sitting down on some steps, kind of talking to himself, and it reminded me of that "Time Enough at Last" moment from the Twilight Zone.
I think that's why they did that.
Yeah. It's a very Shrek move, and I'll forgive it because it's before Shrek. But I'm like, that's everything related to Burgess Meredith in this movie made me think that the filmmakers were trying to put in references to other things that he had been involved in, and I saw right through it.
They could very well have been.
I loved them.
He was fun. I enjoyed him quite a bit.
But that's the thing. Like, when you think about the archetypical characters in these movies, you think about the actors and the characters and what made those characters unique. What are you taking away from this aside from Burgess Meredith? What is his character's name?
Salmon.
Okay. Tell me something that you're going to remember about this character that's not associated with the fact that Burgess Meredith played him, that separates him from other archetypes in movies like this that you've seen.
The fact that he has a basket full of cats and clothes, and yet he takes the robe out that's supposed to be made for a prince, which has to be covered in cat piss. He's like, this looks fine. And puts it on Perseus. That made me laugh. And then, every time when something happens, like, by the gods, he does this like whisper, like, which always reminds me of St. Elmo's fire when the lady, it was cancer and stuff like that. So it's like his revelation that something happens, like, oh, by the gods. performance. You know, he always has to say that. I just thought he was the most believable. He was the only one who was actually like that came there to act, that had like a somewhat serious performance. Like he came prepared and he was like, I'm doing this. Like I'm going to make sure that, people realize that my, Academy Award for Rocky wasn't just a fluke, and I'm going to give it my all. And I thought he was the only one.
Well, but but here's the thing. You didn't answer my question.
Yeah.
You started to, and you made a reference to cat piss and him talking to himself. But then you went back to he came prepared. I asked specifically, take Burgess Meredith out of it. What do we, tell me about this guy's character and why he's memorable.
It's the whispering, the by the gods.
I love the knowledge of this guy. This is the guy that you have in most RPGs that you want to tag along. He knows all the lore. He knows all the locations. He's one of the guides to help our young guy. He's a guy who hasn't gone out anymore on adventures on himself.
Again, I said, this is an archetype. Tell me about this character that makes him unique among the archetypes, besides the fact that he's being played by Burgess Meredith.
Oh, I didn't say it was unique to the archetype. There's archetypes all over in this film.
That's what I'm saying.
But they're archetypes that I enjoy. So for me, I guess I don't foresee it as a bad thing if they fall into the archetypes that we've necessarily seen before. I was still and even watching it again, entertained by all of the archetypes that we are seeing. One of the things that I did notice watching it is, and maybe this falls into another category of films that, and I'm not saying this is a great film. I'm just saying I enjoy this film quite a bit, but I get definitely where everybody here is coming from. But this is also one of those films that ended up influencing filmmakers that made better films of this. Your big filmmakers, your big directors, Spielberg, Cameron, George Lucas, I forgot who else was named, but a number of them all said that this film influenced them in their filmmaking going forward after they saw this. And Ray Harryhausen's film, even films before this. Sorry, not Ray's specifically this film, but Ray's stop motion films in general have influenced them over the years. And so, not necessarily, I apologize, I'll backtrack. It's not Clash of the Titans, but Ray's films have influenced those filmmakers for decades. And so here you have Ray going up against those guys who were influenced by his films doing it better. And, maybe that's part of, why it wasn't exactly greatest received and why you guys are mentioning what you're saying. And I totally get it. For me, I love these archetypes. I mean, I love my fantasy films. And for me, I don't mind these archetypes, as I find it interesting. I love the witches. I love the Medusa angle, all the characters in here, what they do, the stop motion. Yeah, it looks a bit janky. I will fully admit some of these scenes. But for me, I find the entertainment in here still. And maybe it's because I grew up and watched this film quite a bit from start to finish, But again, I am not saying that it doesn't have a lot of shortcomings, which it does. One of the big things for me was one that I didn't pick up on when you're young and in the 80s, but now we're in 2026 and we're sitting there and we're like, yo, Perseus, you're doing the Invisible Man thing, man. You just go into her room and you're all invisible and you're just like staring like, damn. And I'm just like, okay, you saw her already. You don't need to be in the bedroom with her staring at her all invisible like. And but it does, they could have handled that better, but it does lead to him realizing she's enchanted by Calibos, and she's getting the riddles from him, which I thought was interesting. And I loved the little stop motion vulture that transports her quite a bit as well. But no, I get what you're saying, Ian, about the characters. No, pretty much all of these characters are archetypes we've seen before.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at is with Alec Guinness playing Obi-Wan Kenobi, or let's just say Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Those are archetypes, and those are straight out of the hero's journey, Hero of a Thousand Faces, the Joseph Campbell stuff. But what sets them apart, in addition to great performances by great actors, is a script that gives them dimension beyond the archetype.
Mhm.
Whether it's Obi-Wan Kenobi explaining the philosophy of the Jedi and kind of being cryptic about the nature of what he knows about Luke Skywalker's father, or Gandalf kind of going through his transformation from the beginning to the middle part of the second film. There's something there that you can take away from that character to say, this is what makes this character different from the other, old wizard archetypes from a Joseph Campbell book. This movie, no one can tell me what that is that makes it special, aside from the fact that it was Burgess Meredith and maybe he did something kind of quirky with, a line of dialogue, like an aside. And that's just where I'm coming from with it. I think that applies to pretty much all of the characters in this movie. It feels like it was made, 40 years earlier, before people started to get really into the sophistication of what you can do with storytelling. This is 4 years after Star Wars. And aside from a couple of things that very clearly look like we're trying to, as you mentioned, Mark, capitalize on, everyone loves this big space movie. It's like they didn't quite learn the lessons of what else made Star Wars special from a storytelling standpoint. Because you take away all of the dialogue and the character flourishes from that, and you just have generic space opera with great special effects.
With great special effects. Yeah, we can't fake it. And see, and that part of the charm for me with this, and Ted the sound guy track guy also mentions that there's kind of a charm to its shortcomings as far as he's concerned. And that's a bit where I'm coming from with this. For me, is I do find a lot of charm. Now I will fully admit, watching it again after I haven't watched it for a while, you came to mind, Ian. You did.
Okay.
Because about 2/3 of the way in, I'm like, Ian's not going to like this movie.
How did you know?
And
what gave it away? What was the tell?
And I want to
get to that long, that 2/3 of the way in.
well, and I want to preface this by saying I am not saying this is a slight to anyone. It's just that watching it, I did pick up on these slow bits, how it slows down about 2/3 of the way in. The film really kind of slows a bit, and it gets to what you guys were talking about, is in the padding of some of the scenes that were going longer than they necessarily needed to be to get where they were going. Like, it takes them a while to get to Medusa's place. Once they get into Medusa's place, I love that whole interaction that they had there. And the fact, and we finally get the explanation on the extra features on the DVD, which, oh my God, there's actually extra features on it. Ray Harryhausen said the reason they did the 2-headed dog instead of 3 was because the 3-headed dog would have been too tough to try to animate, as well as it would have looked a little goofy because they couldn't animate it as well. So they went with a 2-headed dog. Because I always wondered that as a kid, even. I was like, I really do 2. And he's like, yeah, we went with the 2-headed dog because 3-headed would have been just too complicated to try to animate.
Too accurate.
So I appreciate that. And the Medusa body, though, what's funny is the Medusa body, they came up with it being serpentine because in mythology, and at least most of the stories, it's just snakes on her head, and anyone looks at her. I don't remember her body actually being turned into a snake. But here they turned into a snake because they wanted her to look a little bit more menacing. They thought, it added a little bit of difference to her. The fact that she has to kind of pull herself by her arms as well when she travels, and moves, just made it an interesting character. And what I find interesting is her design of Medusa is probably what you said, Ian, is one of the most memorable parts of this film by many. And it influenced many fantasy games after this. That's the one thing, if you look at this, even for all of its shortcomings and its roughness, And absolutely, it's archetypes in that. If you look at this film is like a guide to being a fantasy game. Because if you look at this, you see so many elements in here that had influenced fantasy game making years from, still today. Even you look at it and some of the stuff they came up with that you didn't quite see portrayed as far as the designs and such go quite like that before on that all-in-one movie. So you can see its influences. But I mean, I fully admit, no, watching it now as a little more critical eye, 45 years later, now, I do see more of the roughness and shortcomings, but for me, I still enjoy it. Part of it is the music. I love the music. I love the characters and the ideas in here, though fully admit everything in here is stuff that you have, especially now, seen many times before.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Katie.
No, I would say what you were saying about the influence. I mean, obviously, it influenced the 2010 Clash of the Titans, especially with the look of Medusa. And I would even say the look of the Kraken influenced the look of the creature in Jeepers Creepers. Because the way the face looks, I never really thought about it. And I was like, man, that does. I mean, I've seen this face before, but I don't know why. And now seeing it, within the past couple of years of whatever, or just thinking of that Jeepers Creepers creature, and then seeing this Kraken, it's like, I can definitely see some influence on that too. And that's very cool. And I agree. The music is fantastic, but I do think that for me, seeing this, because I watched it, I bought it on Prime, and I don't know if they added some stuff, like they've done with some of the Star Wars movies where they added things. I feel like maybe that was something that happened, because I honestly do not remember so much of this overlay as blatantly bad as it was when I'm watching. I'm like, ooh, especially like with Poseidon and the Kraken and all that stuff. I mean, I will always remember Perseus and Pegasus, and obviously that looked fake, but it was, for the time, that looked pretty cool. And even now, it didn't look as bad, but this overlay stuff, I was like, gosh, I don't remember this looking like this at all. Like, wow. But that's just me.
Yeah, I don't think they enhance anything, but I think you're picking up on something that I've noticed in movies from my childhood where and Mark kind of touched on this, either the film grain of seeing this in a movie theater or you on VHS, there is that kind of things benefiting from being of a lower quality. It looks more seamless. Whereas when you've got something, I mean, I watched the DVD. It's got a different cover than what you've got, Mark. But it's I rented it from the library. It sounds like we've got kind of the same special features. But I'm watching this thinking, I kind of wish I had a 1988 VHS of this, because I don't think it would have been as bad. And I think it's also just the way that our brains are wired, because we're so used to seeing photorealistic special effects that it does take us right. The suspension of disbelief is completely broken when we see something that's like dated. Whereas, 45 years ago, we were at different places in our lives. We were also very young. We didn't know any better. Like, oh, this looks really convincing. This is, I believe in this guy flying this horse. It's not claymation.
Well, and the thing is, another context, and I think this falls into a film that, in all honesty, Ian, we were talking about legacy IPs and that, and nostalgia, in the pre-show, which check it out on the Patreon, only a little over $1, folks. You can hear the conversation before the conversation, and you can hear me being told how wrong I am on things. But no, I kid, I joke. Okay. But it's, it's one of those things where if you look at this, Ray Harryhausen was known for his stop motion animation in the 50s and 60s. That was 20 years removed. This is 20 years removed from that, but he made those films, even late 60s, with the stop motion that people love, that I mentioned, Spielberg, Cameron, Lucas, they all grew up on Harryhausen genre films and loved it. Ray was making, films left and right for genre films. So if you look at the 81 film, not as an 81 film, but as a film that's a send up to those movies, it makes a little bit more sense in that here is a film that's being made in 81 that is a send up, say, nod to those 50s and 60s stop motion Jason and the Argonauts, seven, Voyages of Sinbad type of movies that folks who would have been older, had grown up with, are now seeing, and it's sent up. Does it fit within the 80s? No, it is dated even for the 80s. Fully admit that with the stop motion. But, I think that's part of it too, is that even for an 80s film, it does look dated now. And while I enjoy it, it does have a lot of shortcomings. I feel there's a chunks sitting on the cutting room floor we will never see, because I think there are parts in here that would have added to it that may have been cut for whatever reason. Pegasus maybe meeting up with Perseus, or it may just be implied that, Zeus is meddling. All of a sudden it's just like, poof. Okay. No, I've changed entire reality. And now, Perseus is on the Pegasus. That is how I always took it as a kid, is like some of the manipulation where you get the jumps where they do something with the statue and suddenly this is the way things are with them being gods. I think I always took it as more than them just manipulating that character. It's like almost the entire reality of things, to where, time passes, longer than what we're seeing as an audience. But it's not conveyed very well, which I will fully admit. But yeah, it's an interesting film. I enjoy it. And this has been a wonderful discussion, my friends. I think, and we'll just get a final thought in here. I think if you're a fan of Ray Harryhausen's work, like the films I've mentioned earlier, the stop motion stuff, there's charm and enjoyment to be had here. But if you're a more modern film viewer looking at it, yeah, all the things that my fine panel have brought up tonight are very valid points. So, but would I recommend it? I would still recommend it for those fans of Harryhausen and classic stop motion such, and maybe some folks looking for a little fantasy nostalgia. This one definitely feels like a D&D campaign. Ian, what's your final thought with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I watched it. I'll never watch it again. I appreciate what they were trying to go for here, but again, I'm going to go back to Star Wars and what Lucas did with the Harryhausen homage in the kind of the 3D animated chessboard scene.
Right.
One of the reasons that works so well is it is an homage, but it's also presented in a way that you've got a bunch of filters on these characters. So they are digital light projections, and you're not meant to think, oh, these are actual characters on this. There's not like little aliens. They are essentially video game characters, right? So, and they also look really good. All of the characters and the animations in that, 15 seconds we see on screen, no slam on Harryhausen's work in Clash of the Titans, but none of that rivals what's going on in that virtual chessboard. And part of that is the integration into the reality of the scene. So yeah, it'd be interesting. We're talking about all the kind of compositing shenanigans. If somewhere down the line, and I'm not suggesting anyone use AI to do this, but do like a restoration of the 1981 Clash of the Titans and see if you can blend everything together to make it feel seamless, so that when you sit down to watch the movie, there's no point where you're like, oh, I'm really into this story, and now we've got a technical exercise. And now we're back to the story, and oh, isn't this a cool showcase for what Ray Harryhausen can do? That's the big problem with this movie, aside from that little cheek that's needed in the screenplay to give it a bit more personality and fun, is that constant yanking back and forth from fantasy to I'm watching a movie. That's where I'm at.
Said. Well said. Katie, what's your final thought?
I think it's a very, if you want to be dropped into 1981, I think it's a very much a time capsule film. You have some of the greatest, living legends in acting in the film. You also have, someone who's just starting off and seeing them, kind of begin their adventure into entertainment. If you're watching this and thinking you're going to pick up on a lot of mythology and be an expert on mythology, I would watch something else because that is not what this is. I do like the fact that Olivier's Zeus is very sassy and snarky. Also with a little bit of that narcissistic tendency that, most of the Greek gods have and all that stuff. And it also shows, the crap bags that humans are to each other. And sometimes when you're like that, then you need to be punished. But again, if you're getting a degree in mythology, this is not the film to watch. I would really like to see if there would be, I would like to have all of the gods that are in the current Clash of the Titan, that the more modern 2010 Clash of the Titans, and then maybe mix this with some of the Harryhausen claymation just without that overlay stuff. That would be my ideal. But again, if you want to see a film from 1981 that really shows what 81's kind of about, or not
Porky's,
even really
Porky's
about.
through the next day. Yes.
Yeah. Just watch this and that's know that the future does hold some benefits, at least in film.
Well said. And we got Ted, the sound guy, who's still with us. So glad you're here, Ted. Says the roughness of the special effects and some of the jarring editing and camera work gives it this fever dream quality that makes it impossible to forget. I can't help but like it. And, I'm kind of with you, Ted. I think there is a bit of a fever dream feel to it. But it is definitely a product of its time. It's Ray's, one of his last, I think, major works that he did. And it's, it shows you what you could do with some of the traditional stuff. It's just that by the time it came out, Lucas ruined it for everybody.
A couple years. I think this was filmed like in 1979 or 70.
Yeah, it was started. Production started in 79. It started before Empire.
Yeah, because Hamlin and Andrus had a kid in the 80s, so they had a kid before this movie even came out.
Yeah.
So that tells you again, that's very different than a lot of modern films right now. It's like they're doing stuff that comes out like in 6 months that would have all these different things. So again, it's a product of its time. But I do agree with you wholeheartedly with the score. That is one of those things that I feel like the 80s, when you have these action adventures like with Krull, with Clash of the Titans, with stuff, they have these massive orchestrated scores that honestly are breathtaking. So I'm very, very jealous that you have your vinyl back there, because that is something I really liked a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed this energizing discussion about Clash of the Titans in 1981. Thank you so much for Ted, the soundtrack guy, for tuning in. We'll give a shout out to him. Please check out his channel. He recently, speaking of adventure films, he recently did a review of the Willow soundtrack by James Horner. So, definitely check that out. And hey, Talix was here too. Thanks, Talix. He says, great convo. Thanks, folks. Appreciate everyone who tunes in and my wonderful crew who are very patient with me. Thank you both very much. And this is where I give you guys your license to shill. Ladies first, Katie, please, where can they find your wonderful stuff at?
You can find me on The Blonde in Front on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Did I say TikTok? No, I didn't say TikTok. And also, sometimes I'm invited and very much excited to guest on Kicking the Seat and anything with Special Mark Productions, as well as Neon Movie Bunker, and Postmortem Radio, where I just did a review of 28 Years Later. So check it out.
Awesome. And Mr. Ian Simmons, you too make some great stuff. You recently just did a live stream earlier today as well, if I remember correctly, with some Italian films you're looking at. So what do you got to shill, sir?
Well, I am Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and right here on YouTube. And as you mentioned earlier today, I did an Accademia Giallo stream about a hyena in the safe, which, according to the panel, was not a Giallo film. I understand, but I kind of disagree. It's a great movie, and one of the nice things about that episode was that it was a revelation to everybody who watched it, because most of them had never heard of this film. So it was a really pleasant surprise. I'm also doing live streams, talking Tuesday about the Chris Pratt, Rebecca Ferguson film Mercy at 8 p.m. Central, if you want to jump onto that. And my latest endeavor is, you got the swag. Nice. But my latest endeavor is I'm writing for CBR. That's Comic Book Resources, so cbr.com. I am a newly minted freelancer in their movies and TV section. So I've got 3 pieces up so far and more to come. So thank you.
Fantastic, exciting. Yes. Well done, sir. Well deserved.
I'm also here on Sundays. I'm here on Sundays talking movies.
He was going to take off. He's like, yeah, see, now I'm with CBR. That screw you guys. You made me watch Clash of the Titans. I'm out of here. No. And Talix, he says he mentions he loves James Horner. He'll check it out. Yeah, I've actually recently picked up the Willow soundtrack on vinyl as well. Yeah. Talk about
vintage, like the old school one, or they do a new one?
The original pressing of it. I picked up.
Nice.
I'm not gonna say money that was involved, but it was the same day I picked up the Dragon Slayer soundtrack. Let's just say it was a day that I did a lot of dishes. So anyway, on that note, folks, we're going to end it here. Next month, we are going through the door as we look at films where our characters go through a door to another world. And yeah, we've got a great lineup coming up. The films that we will be talking about next month, which you can find the order on specialmarkproductions.com. We'll be talking about Pan's Labyrinth, the original Alice in Wonderland animated film from the 50s. We'll be talking, Coraline, and Being John Malkovich. So it's an interesting a mixture of films next month of characters going through doors. So hope you tune in for that. Thank you so much, Talix and Ted, the soundtrack guy, and all the folks who tune in. I appreciate every single one of you. And until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night,